I was sitting there like, "Oh, this is crazy. I can't stand still." So I started blinking my eyes and I said, "Oh, this way would like," so I'm blinking and it didn't know about it, but I got like a strobe thing going with my eyes. So I told a friend next to me, "Hey, blink your eyes." And she looked down and we were directly right in front of her. She looked down at us blinking and she said, "There'll be no blinking of the eyes in this auditorium." So now what do we do? We have to just stand there and look at her, you know? But later on, I thought, I wonder what if you were somebody who wants to obey everything that the nun tells you and you're in the back row and she says, "You can't blink your eyes." What do you do then? You're just like,
Hey, Granddad.
"Hey,
How are you?
okay.
It's been a week since we talked.
Yes, I'm
Mhm.
a week older now."
So last week we talked about where you were born, when you were born, college point, and all the things that happened. But I know there was some funny stories you used to share with us when you were younger, and I thought maybe we can get into some
It's
more
so
of
funny.
those.
So all the stories were funny when I was talking in front of people. I would just make them laugh. Last week when I told them in front of people, I had everybody laughing. But and then you just like recording. "Oh yeah, I did this and did that." But I mean, it was kind of funny, like being brought up in school as being retarded. And it was basically learning disability and my desire not to be at school. I had no desire to go to school. Like I said, I don't know if I said it, I saw my brother being dragged to school and
Yeah.
he was a year older than me. And he was kicking and screaming because my older brother, I have two older brothers and six younger brothers, I guess. But he told my brother Billy all these horror stories, and so he didn't want to go. And when they finally, me and Billy used to do everything, and then it was his time to go. I watched out the window, him being dragged, yeah, kicking and screaming, and all I remember thinking is, "I go next."
Right, right.
So it was like it was a bit terrifying, and so I never had a desire to be in school. When I went there, I didn't want to learn what they were teaching, and they would tell me I had to sit still, and I couldn't sit still, and I kind of keep my mouth shut, and like even
You're
when I,
too much of a yapper for that.
yeah, well, not so much in school, but we would whisper things to each other, and of course you'd get caught. There was too many kids in the class and one nun. I mean, one story I remember, I'm a kindergarten. They have an assembly in the basement from all the schools, I mean, all the classes, and they had the kindergarten kids in the first row in this auditorium. We're all standing. We had to stand at attention. The mother superior comes up on the stage and starts talking. Meanwhile, me and this other kid, I was sitting there like, "This is crazy. I can't stand still." So I started blinking my eyes and I said, "Oh, this way would like," so I'm blinking and it didn't know about it, but I got like a strobe thing going with my eyes. So I told a friend next to me, "Hey, blink your eyes." So we're over there blinking our eyes, looking at everything and enjoying our time and not paying
Not
attention to
paying
anything
attention.
that the Mother Superior was saying. And she looked down and we were directly right in front of her. She looked down at us blinking and she said, "There'll be no blinking of the eyes in this auditorium."
Right.
And we said, "Okay, so now what do we do?" We have to just stand there and look at her, But later on, I thought, I wonder what if you were somebody who wants to obey everything that the nun tells you and you're in the back row and she says, "You can't blink your eyes." What do you do then? You're just like, you had to have a staring contest or something like that. But that's the way it was in my school. It was always something going on. Like I said, I got kicked off the altar boys. The nun says, "You want to be? You can't even speak English." It was like almost a daily thing. I mean, I remember getting caught doing something. I don't know what it was. And they brought me up. I couldn't have been in more than the first grade. And she made me kneel at the blackboard with my chin on the eraser, the
Yeah.
chalk and the erasers would, and my knees didn't touch the ground. So I'm kind of hanging on my chin for however long. It seemed like a long time. I'm sure it wasn't all that long. It wasn't the whole day. So we had to sit there, or maybe during prayers or something like that. Because you get in there and the first thing you had to do is say your prayers and the pledge of allegiance or whatever. And then it was time for schoolwork. And there was, like I say, I had dyslexia and ADH, and I didn't want to learn. I was sort of in my own world at that point, So, but I mean, we had a fun time. College Point was kind of a nice town when I went there. Like I say, when I went there, it was German, Irish, and Italian, and then we had things going on all year long. We had soapbox derby races where my father would build these cars. You'd be at the top of the road, and all of a sudden, they'd let it go, and you'd all like, and you roll down the hill, and they quit the year I was old enough to drive. So I never got to drive
Right.
down the thing. My cousin ran over a kid. Cousin Peggy was going down, and she went off the road and hit a kid on the sidewalk.
That may have been why they stopped it.
Could have been. Also, what happened was, it was supposed to be all homemade stuff. And last year we had there was this super duper model somebody had gotten from,
Prepackaged.
yeah,
Yeah.
Acme was like the
Acme.
like the
Wiley
road
Coyote.
runner. You're going after the road runner. I got Acme, and he had this
With a
bullet looking thing. It looked like a rocket.
rocket on the
Of course,
back.
he walked away with the winning prizes, and everybody's like, "Why Bobby?"
Right. Well, it's surprising because in the Scouts and the other programs, they do these little Pinewood Derby things, right?
Yeah,
You remember doing that with Rob when he was little. But now some of these parents have this incredible machinery that,
yeah.
and they cut it and they plane it and they have all this, and they put it in the thing and the computer does what, and it's almost not worth
Yeah,
racing
well,
anymore.
originally they'd say, "Well, let the boys do it themselves." The boys, not many of the boys were good enough to do anything with those cars without the help of their father. And I
Right.
thought, like I just, being that I was a Weeblos leader at the time, I thought this is an opportunity to get the fathers to work with the children. They go, "The fathers cannot help." I said, "That's crazy. I think this thing here should be, all right, sons, get your father or your mother or whatever, somebody involved in this so
Get
that
an
you have a,
adult to teach you how to do this.
yeah, teach you how to do it and have some kind of relationship." I thought it was great for the fathers, like
Mhm.
you spend time with your son. I mean, I helped every kid in my den to do it because the year before there was a kid in our den, Hector, and his father didn't do anything. They just took the block of wood and painted it and put the wheels on. And and they weren't even on straight. And it was like, he didn't even make it down the thing. It's like, so, I'm sitting there like, this is the way we're supposed to do it. Well, he did it all himself. Yeah, he did it all himself. He just painted the block of wood. He didn't even sand it or nothing. So the next year he had a much better car because we did it all in my basement at the Weeblos meeting. So,
Right, right.
but we had a lot of
But so
fun.
anyway, it's like that. I'm surprised they stopped it.
Mhm.
There's a time when they would have stopped it for something like that.
Yeah. But I mean, on Thanksgiving, we had ragamuffin parades. We had a Halloween parade. Halloween was something we all would go out on Halloween, and then, we'd always mark the houses that gave you money or good stuff. And then me and my brother would go home, change costumes, and go back out. And we'd only go to the houses that gave you good stuff. And I'm sure a lot of kids did that kind of stuff,
Right, right.
you know.
Yeah.
But it was something always going on in town. There was, the bazaar, summer school. You'd go to the public schools. The only time we went to the public school was for during summer school. You go in there and you run around, you play knock hockey, which is a game that nobody plays anymore. It was easy to make, a little knock hockey game. You take one wooden hanger, cut it in half, and you have two knock hockey sticks. So it was a fun little town. It was a
So
dead end town.
one time, I think you were camping when Uncle Rusty was chasing you. What happened with that?
Yeah. My brother Rossi, my oldest brother, he was off into high school, and he bought his friend that we're still in touch with now, and that was in 1963, because it was before, maybe 62, 63, before we moved out to Long Island, and we went upstate camping. Lots of things happened on that camping thing. But I did something to my oldest brother, and I was just a skinny little kid that even when I went into the service, I was just under 6 foot tall and weighed 145 pounds. So I was a little Jimmy Stewart looking, skinny little guy. And so, but my brother, Rusty, he was a little bigger and stockier. I didn't think he was a very good tree climber. But anyway, something happened and I hit him or something, and he went chasing me. I was faster than him even at that age. And I immediately jumped up onto this tree. I climbed up and was laughing at him. So he started climbing up after me. And he was like a slow climber. He's climbing up after me. And I just keep going up higher. And I already have an idea what I'm gonna do. And he's coming up after me. And I get up to this one branch, which was like maybe as big as your arm, thick as your arm or something like that. And there was another one over it. And I walked out on it.
When he was
And
saying he had you trapped, right?
yeah, I got you trapped. You ain't going nowhere now. And he climbed up to that very branch that I'm on. And as soon as he got up to there, I jumped from that branch and that tree to the tree next to me and grabbed the branch there, crawled over, climbed down, and my brother was stuck. It was a lot easier to climb a tree than to climb down a tree. Now he had to climb down a tree, and I remember just standing there looking at him and laughing at him. I thought I was stuck like somebody else is stuck.
Right. You were around 12? So
Yeah, I was
13?
probably around 12 years old. And then that night, we were supposed to go to the movies, and it was like all of it. Like my father had a station wagon.
How old were you when Aunt Mary Ellen was born?
Mary Ellen wasn't even born then. She was born in 64. Rudy probably wasn't even born. He was, or Gerard, he was born in November.
After that summer.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's, yeah.
It could have been after that summer. It
Or a
depends
whole
on
nother
whether it was
year.
62 or 63 when we went up camping. In any case, I was sitting there, and the door, if you locked the door and you closed it, it automatically opened. And I noticed that sometimes it didn't do that. So I was trying to make it so that the door, when I close it, the lock would stay down. And I would open it and I'd close it. And the lock popped up. I'd open it, lock it, hold the handle up and pull it and close it. And the lock would come up. And so then I opened it and I was going to hold the handle a certain way. And I didn't realize my brother Billy grabbed the door handle to get in the car. And I slammed his finger into the door. And this time it worked. The door locked. So then he goes, oh, man, I couldn't open the door. And I didn't realize it locked. So
Were you on the inside or the outside?
I was on the inside. So then I saw it actually didn't unlock. So I unlocked it and opened it because instead of going to the movies, we went to the emergency room hospital. And while we're there, of course, everybody blamed me. He got his stitches and everything came out. And like I say, we never got to go to the movies. But years later, when you closed Rob's hand in the doorknob, in the car door, it was a little messed up. And I said, look, Rob, you can put a Band-Aid on it and go to the movies, or you can go to the hospital. He still has the scar. He shows it to me every once in a while, He chose to go to the movies because I made it in a way we can wait around for hours and they're probably just going to put a Band-Aid on. We can go to the movies, put a Band-Aid on there. So he just, well, put the Band-Aid on, So he put a Band-Aid on it.
Luckily, it wasn't broken or healed. It mended in some way.
Yeah, well, it was all, a little bit. It's still, you can still, he got his door. Something happened to his finger, whatever. What was it? The other thing that happened, different things happened, like always between us kids. There was too many kids, My father was an air traffic controller, and he was a bombardier veteran. He flew 33 missions, 30 over Germany, dropping bombs.
After the war, he became an air traffic controller.
Yeah, after the war, he became an air traffic controller, and he did that for 33 years before he retired.
But wait, you lived in a duplex with...
Yeah, we lived in a duplex family house that they had bought when they first got married with the idea of turning it into a one-family house, and the upstairs would be all the bedrooms, and the downstairs would be the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, whatever. But when they first bought it, I don't even know if I was born. It was right around the time I was born, either right before I was born or right after I was born. Let's say 1950. They only had, with me, 4 kids, and my uncle had 3 or 4 also. So my uncle, my aunt, and my uncle lived upstairs, and they were supposed to move out in 1957, the spring of 1957. But in the winter, or actually December 1956, my uncle died.
And how many kids did he have?
He had 6 kids, and so my parents said, oh, Joe, and my aunt was from England and a little bit unsophisticated in American ways, I guess you could say. She didn't get help from my grandmother. My grandmother didn't help her the way she should have. In fact, they should have sued the VA hospital because they did something totally outrageously wrong, which caused the death of my uncle and my grandmother. It was a friend of my grandmother, the doctor, so she refused to do anything. So then my my cousins and my aunt, they never got any government support or nothing for, an A2nd Airborne paratrooper. He fought in Africa and Sicily. He parachuted in on Normandy. He was on the Bridge Too Far battle, and he was in several major battles. And I think he had post-traumatic stress. He was never entirely happy. He always seemed, he was a nice guy. Definitely, I thought he needed. Well, I didn't know anything then. I just thought he was a war hero when I was a kid. But
Well, people think differently about trauma from the war and trauma in general. I mean, you're talking about your Aunt Joan. She probably had some type of trauma from living in England during the war.
yeah, so it was like they never moved out until 1962. That was like 6 years later. And by then, my parents had 12 kids
In a two-bedroom.
in 2 bedrooms, and then they finally moved out, and my father
So
turned
where did everybody sleep?
what?
Where did everybody sleep in this two-bedroom house?
Well,
It's a
my
house,
brother
right?
Rusty, my grandmother lived around the block, my mother's mother, and she kind of took my brother Rusty
Yeah, that never really sat well with me. I don't
in
understand.
1956 or 55. She took him. She asked my mother for him in front of my brother. It would all right if Rusty came and lived with me. And my brother Rusty was like, "Whoa, yeah, I want to live with Nana. Yeah, yeah." Go ahead. He went back and
So it
forth.
sounded exciting
And my
because
mother,
he's, like, sharing a
yeah,
room,
well, live with your
you go to
grandmother.
grandma's, you get your own space,
Yeah, he have his
right?
own room. So,
And then she would never give him back.
yeah, she would never give me back. I don't know why my mother didn't. My mother wanted him back, and he wanted to come back, but it never happened. I don't know why my mother didn't talk to her father because he might have been. He would be the only one that would have been able to stand up to my grandmother.
Yeah.
But so he was living over there, and so in '62 when we went upstairs, in my bedroom after my brother moved out, I lived in a 8 by 10 bedroom with a double decker and a triple decker. So
So what is a triple decker?
it was my father had a bunch of double-decker beds, and he converted the one double-decker into a triple-decker, so he had 3 beds on top of each other. Top bed was, like, 2 feet away from the ceilings, maybe a little more, maybe the bottom he shortened the last one, so the top would be a little shorter. So we had a triple-decker and a double-decker, so it was, Billy, Bobby, Jimmy, Richard, and Kevin. We were all in an 8 by 10 room, and then there was a little bigger room. It was probably 10 by 12. My sister's room. My 3 sisters lived there, but they wanted to keep them there because that was my father's day bed. Because the FAA, you work nights, then you work graves, then you work day, then you work night. Every 2 weeks, you're shifting. So we used to plan our evil deeds when my father was at work. We we knew when he's not coming home tonight, great, we'd stay out late, whatever.
Well, how old were you, though? You were young.
Well, yeah, well, that time, by the time I was 12, we were,
Yeah.
we'd sneaking out. My parents would go somewhere and they'd leave my sister Kathy in charge of everybody, my older sister. So I was like 10, 11. Let's say I was 11. My brother was 12. My sister would have been 14, and she's the babysitter. My
For 10
parents would
kids.
leave, and my brother Billy and I would just say, "See you later," and we'd leave. And every time we get home, my parents would get home, my sister Kathy would tell on us. So, I don't know. Somehow, my brother, neither one of them remembered the way I remember it, but there's something went on between my brother Billy and my sister Kathy. And after that, she stopped squealing on us.
Mm.
And we just I mean, I remember walking out with screaming babies on the floor and just stepping over them to go out because I was going to pick them up. I mean, let's face it, I was changing diapers when I was 8 years old, or helping change his diaper by the time I was 8, 9 years old, because it was all cloth diapers. You'd have to go in there, and if it was a poopy diaper, you put it in the toilet, knock that poop out, and throw it in the diaper bag or whatever, the bucket. And so, it's like, and my mother showed me how to. When you're sticking the pins in there, put your hand between the baby and the pin. So if you stick anybody, you stick yourself. And I don't know how many times it teaches you not to stick yourself, and it helps you not to stick the baby because, you don't want to stick the baby with a pin, even though they were my brothers and sisters. There was always things happening. Someone was always getting sick. If somebody got the measles, my mother threw us all in the room together.
So everybody
Pretty
would get it together.
Everybody get it together. We're not going to go through because she
Take
didn't do
3
that.
months.
If she didn't do that, one would get sick, and then another would get sick, and then another would get sick, and it'd be like 4 or 5 weeks of nothing but. So she'd throw us all in together. We'd all get the measles. We'd all get the chicken pox or whatever, the mumps. I had them all. That was just the way, get it all over with, get them in there, and so you didn't have to deal with it slowly and progressively. And like I said, I used to stay home from school. That's what if my father wasn't home, I would stay home from school. So And me and my brother would even stay up and watch movies at night.
So how did you watch movies at night?
Well, it wasn't easy. My mother and father slept in the living room on a Castro convertible, and the dining room would be changed into a bedroom for the nursery. There would be two cribs or something like that in there, and there'd be two or three babies living in sleeping in the dining room. So after dinner, me and my brother, we were such good boys. We'd clear the table, and then we'd push the table back against the wall. We'd take all the chairs, we'd put them around the table so it looked like under the table, looked almost like a prison. We had it all set up, and then we'd put the cribs out so the babies could go in the cribs, and then we'd go to bed. My mother put the babies to bed, and my father was at work. And because it was different things, we did different things. This is like when my father was working overnight. So my father would be working at night. And so me and my brother would wait. My mother would fall asleep watching Johnny Carr, or probably Jack Parr, or maybe even before Jack Parr. I see his face. But anyway.
No clue.
What?
I have no clue.
No, it was Jack
I didn't know
Parr.
there was somebody before Johnny Carson.
Yeah, well, Jack Parr was before Johnny Carson.
Grammy, do you know?
Steve Allen.
Grammy knows.
Steve Allen, Jack Parr. So it might have been Steve Allen. And we'd get up and we then would go under the fort we made with the bed, with the tables and the chairs. And we had an area where we could look out and see the TV very clearly.
Now, who would go out there? It was just you and Billy?
Just me and Billy. We did it for years.
But some of the other people found out about it.
That was years later, though. And they all talk about it still, but that's when we got busted. So me and Billy, we would take turns. We'd do reconnaissance. We would go out because you didn't have channel changes. This was like you had to turn the switch, and we're in New York, and there was only so many channels. There was 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11. I think that's all. And then you had some maybe UHF, 21 or something like that, but not very many that you could get in. But Channel 2 would have movies all night long. The Late Show, the Late Late Show, the Late 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 Show. And Channel 7 would have 2 or 3 movies. I don't remember which. And then they would go off the air. Channel 4 would have a movie after after Jack Parr, and they would go off the air. We would reconnaissance. My mother would be asleep. We'd go up there, and then we'd reach up and we'd turn the channel, and we'd put it on Channel 2, and we'd see what movie was on. They said, nah, try 4. 4. No, we don't like that movie. 7. Now let's go back to 2. We put it on 2, and then we'd crawl back under there and we'll wait till the next movie started, and then we'd go up there and do it again. And we did it all night long, when my father was at work. It had to be like 1962 or 63, before 63, because after that we moved upstairs and it was harder to come downstairs and watch TV. But others had found out about it, and before long, everybody in the family knew about it. So we all went under the TV, under the table to watch the TV. And it was me, Billy, Richard, Maureen, and Eileen. And we're all under the table watching the TV. And my father came home. I don't know why he wasn't on the grave shift. He was on the night shift. We shouldn't have been there. But we had done that before. And when my father would come home, we'd been in there, me and my brother Billy, and my father would come home and we'd wait for him to fall asleep before we changed the channel. But my mom and dad were always so sleepy because they were,
exhausted.
They were exhausted for, 12 kids and,
rotating shifts.
Rotating shifts, and he usually had some kind of side work going on. My mother's taking care of all these children.
And then he's doing the Pinewood Derby.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Pinewood, the Soapbox Derby. But my cousins would come down from upstairs. My mother would help them with their homework because my aunt, who was from England, really didn't know too much about American history and stuff, so she really couldn't help them. They came down for my mother. So my mother and father were exhausted, so they would sleep. But my father comes home, we go, be quiet. And then you hear, get out of my way. Oh, you stop here. It's like my brothers and sisters are arguing under the table, and my father's in the room. He goes, who's under the table? My father says, and he looks under there, and there's all of us. We're all under the table.
8 pairs of eyes looking at him.
And so,
I don't know how you keep a straight face when you look.
He kind of laughed at it. He thought it was funny because we were all up watching TV, so he sent us all to bed.
Did you ever do it again after that?
We might have.
It was getting a little bit later then. You were moving.
Yeah. But, we'd have all these different things going on,